Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Apothecary and welcome back to my channel.
Today I'm here to talk about The Anatomy of Fear. This is a short story, horror, dark fantasy, grim dark, self-pub collection all in one. I believe it's all self-pub authors. It is short stories, maybe some novella lengths, but mostly short stories in the horror, dark fantasy, grim dark realm, and I absolutely loved it. Some I didn't love as much as others, but for the most part, I loved those stories. I was eating them up. They all felt exceptionally creepy, and I think that was part of the main goal of this collection. A spoiler-free summary of what this collection is all about. Fear is universal, a shared human experience that provokes awe, curiosity, and terror. It feeds our anxieties, elevates our heartbeats, and drives the instinct to survive. But what are we afraid of and why? Each story in this anthology seeks to answer that question, blurring the boundaries between horror and fantasy fiction. A collection of tales written to evoke feelings of discomfort and despair, fear and fascination in equal measure, inspired by the different parts of our own bodies. Ranging from dark, blood-stained goth streets to haunting visions of otherworldly beings to drug-fueled paranoia trips that twist reality. The Anatomy of Fear is an exploration of the dark realms of the mind. Now, I know some of you might have heard the different parts of our body and are thinking like body horror, and while some of these stories might be body horror line-esque, I wouldn't call it body horror. Most of the stories are not body horror, and the ones that do it's just one aspect of the story. It's not an overwhelming feeling. At least I didn't think so. Now, I do have call pile ratings for these. You can find my numbers in my Goodreads review, which is linked down in the description below. These thoughts on all of our call pile categories are kind of based generally off of the stories. Some stories did better in some categories than other stories, and while I don't know which specific stories, I do note when there is a little bit disparity between them. So let's talk about these call piles categories. First, we have characters. So for the most part, I thought the characters in all the stories were great. There were a few that felt like they could be more vivid in my mind, but overall, they were fantastic characters. Our atmosphere and our setting, I thought this was done really, really well. One or two stories maybe could have done a little bit better, but in general, this was one of the strongest categories in our call pile categories. Writing style, mostly I enjoyed these as much as you can enjoy them. Plot, some were much more plot driven than others, and that's really hard in short stories because you have such short space. To be able to tell a full rounded story in one space is really hard. So kudos to those who were able to really hone it in on the plot. Intrigue, I had intrigue throughout every single one of these stories, so full marks for intrigue. Logic and relationships, some had more logic than others. In our relationships, some had great development, while others needed a bit more. And I found usually the stories that were more plot focused had less character development, relationship development focus, and vice versa. And enjoyment. Of course, I enjoyed these as much as you can enjoy short stories like this. I enjoyed them all. Some obviously more than others, but I enjoyed them all to some extent or less. Now let's talk about some of my favorite short stories in this whole anthology. I have two that I want to talk about today, and it's going to be quick. I didn't write down a whole lot of notes from them, but I just wanted to highlight two of my favorites. First up, we have Baby Teeth by Crystal Matar. This is the story that got me to read this anthology. I am a Crystal Matar Tainted Dominion fangirl. I will read anything that Matar writes, including this short story, which gave us a deeper dive into one of the characters we get in Tainted Dominion. And I absolutely loved seeing that deep dive into it. It helped me be able to understand this character who was more on the outskirts of the Tainted Dominion series, at least in the first book. So this short story gave me a better understanding of who this character is and where he came from, and I loved every second of it. The other short story I have to talk about is My Mother Took Her Skin Off Each Night by Zamil Akhtar. This short story was the definition of creepy. It was so creepy. It haunted my daydreams and my nightmares, and it really kind of put a spotlight on this author for me and made me want to read more of their writing and see if their vivid descriptions carries through into their other longer pieces of writing. So that's my short spoiler-free review for the Anatomy of Fear collection. If you have read this, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of it? Which one was your favorite story? As always, keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.